In my most recent videos about controversies in gaming, I covered some older titles that had really sensitive topics to say the least. For example, in 2006, the game Grape Lay was blacklisted in multiple countries for obvious reasons, just look at the gameplay in the title. And even further back in 1997 when Postal shook the gaming scene with its very violent content. And it seems that today we still have a lot of controversies that surround the same topics. So I decided that today we're diving into some of the most recent and intense controversies in the gaming scene. From the hypersexualized fantasies of No Mercy to Squad 22 ZOV, a tactical military shooter accused of blurring the line between entertainment and propaganda. Whether it's graphic content or questionable creative choices, in recent years gaming has been quite chaotic. Before we get into this video, make sure to like and subscribe for a cookie. Some video games let you live out your outrageous power fantasies, whether it's by crushing your enemies or commanding a large army. But sometimes those fantasies cross into deeply disturbing territory, pushing boundaries that many find unacceptable. One such game is No Mercy, published by Zara Games, which was removed from Steam and banned in several countries altogether. No Mercy, published by Zara Games, first appeared on Steam on March 22nd of this year, and was marketed as another NSFW visual novel. Unlike other visual novels where the main focus is building emotional connections between characters or romancing certain characters, No Mercy allowed for much more extreme choices and had a heavy focus on rape and incest. At this point, it's not hard to see why the game was so controversial. Despite being taken off Steam, the game's page is still up, along with its description, allowing us to unpack the controversy surrounding it. Through a brief content warning, we see the typical notices for NSFW games, such as nudity and other sexual activities. However, what really raised eyebrows were additional warnings of incest, blackmail, and unavoidable non-consensual sex. The developers even marketed the game with phrases like this. I'll leave it up on the screen for a few seconds so you can read it, but it should really give you an idea of just how much controversy this caused and just how the content and marketing was so upsetting to people. No Mercy was Zara Games' first title and perhaps their only one, considering the current state of the game. Zara Games partially funded No Mercy through a now deleted Patreon page, which had approximately over 500 paid members. It's unclear what was on their Patreon page, but some sources say it included basic things like patch notes and the developer's log for the game. When the game was finally released on Steam, many people were quick to call it out for its graphic content. One of the most vocal critics was the UK's technology secretary Peter Kyle, who described the visual novel as deeply worrying and criticized Steam for allowing it on their platform. He argued that Steam should enforce stricter content moderation. Following Peter Kyle's reaction, the game was banned in the UK, Australia, and Canada. But of course, with a game this controversial, Peter Kyle wasn't the only one to critique it. A massive petition on change.org titled at Steam, "Remove No Mercy, Rape Plus Game globally now," gained over 70,000 supporters calling for the game's removal. What's crazy is that despite all the backlash and calls for removal, it was Zara Games themselves who took the game off Steam. On April 10th, Zara Games posted a lengthy statement in the News Hub section of their Steam page, explaining their reasons for withdrawing the game and defending their visual novel. Since the post is long, here's a summary of the key points. Zara Games attempts to address widespread misinformation about their game No Mercy, noting many critics never even played it and sometimes confused it with other games. They emphasize the difference between fiction and reality, rejecting claims that players are dangerous or mentally ill. The company explains that the game contains controversial themes like incest and rape, but these are portrayed as common adult roleplay fantasies, not real-life endorsements or harmful acts. They cite studies showing that exposure to such content does not increase real-world sexual crimes, and argue that parental supervision is key to preventing minors from accessing adult material. Zara Games also criticizes media and content creators for sensationalizing the game, which ironically boosted its visibility and sales. The game has been blocked in Australia, Canada, and the UK. To avoid further conflict, the developers have decided to withdraw No Mercy from Steam, though players who bought it will retain access. They close by asking people to be more understanding of what they call harmless fetishes, and remember that No Mercy is just a game. Even though the developers say it's just a game, can you imagine like one of your friends or relative playing this game and you find out a game that has in the R word? Yeah, you would be like shocked and disgusted. Anyways, I think it's funny how the developers just said it's just a game, bro. And something funny too is that at their statement near the end, they say they would like you to be more open to human fetishes that don't harm anyone, even though they may seem disgusting to you. Okay, they're calling a fetish, but that harms people. I don't know, it's just really insane, this game. As of now, Zeri Games has remained silent on whether the game will continue or if they will ever work on another project. Online reactions to the game were as expected, with many expressing concern and calling out anyone who purchased it, saying they should be put on a watch list. However, despite the explicit content, some continue to defend the game for various reasons, whether because it aligns with their own fantasies or concerns about censorship. Even though that entry was only like 5 minutes long, it still felt really long to read because of the constant mentioning of the R word. I still don't know how I'm gonna censor it when I'm editing this video. Anyways, for our next entry, Squad 22 ZOV. When a real war becomes a propaganda video game. The line between real-world events and video games is often crossed, sometimes by the games themselves and sometimes by the discourse surrounding them. One recent release brings that tension to the forefront, Squad 22 ZOV, a tactical war game that has sparked widespread debate due to its ties to the ongoing conflict in Ukraine and its reported backing by the Russian Ministry of Defense. Released on May 28, 2025 via Steam, Squad 22 ZOV describes itself as a single-player tactical real-time action game. It features an active pause mechanic that allows players to issue strategic commands mid-combat. What sets this title apart isn't its gameplay, which some players have praised, but its direct connection to real-world events. The game is inspired by the experiences of Russian veterans who served in Ukraine, drawing from key moments starting in 2014 and extending to recent operations. According to its developers, the game is based on the real wartime experiences of Russian veterans and aims to portray modern small unit tactics with support from armored vehicles and drones. Their intent wasn't just to make a game, but also to provide additional educational and methodological material for school children and students. According to Alexander Gorbachenko, the director of Intercontinental Esports, the involvement of the Russian Ministry of Defense has led many online outlets to describe Squad 22 ZOV as a Russian state-sponsored war game. SPN Studio, the game's developer, has acknowledged this connection, and even stated that the game has been used by instructors, for example, to teach the tactics of storming buildings. One of the first controversies sparked by the game came from its title. ZOV is a combination of letters associated with the Russian military, particularly the Z, which has been seen and used on Russian military vehicles during the invasion of Ukraine. The Russian Ministry of Defense stated on March 3, 2022 that Z stood for Za Pobyedo, or for victory. I do not know if I'm going to pronounce that or this next one right. While V stood for Sile Vypravd, or strength and truth. Some analysis also suggests that the letters may identify specific army groups. For example, Z often associated with Russian forces operating in southern Ukraine. The game was announced in 2024, with SPN Studios saying it would depict real conflicts such as the 2014 war in Donbass, the siege of Mariupol in 2022, and other recent events. You could probably guess which ones. I gotta be really careful when talking about this stuff because YouTube is known for taking down videos that cover the recent events. According to the studio, much of the game's material was developed through interviews with Russian veterans and active soldiers. When asked about the game's funding, SPN Studios lead developer Alexander Tolkach stated that it came from our own savings and in majority by a private investor, and claimed that all earnings made from in-game purchases would go to the team members of SPN Studios. Man, I really wonder who could be those private investors. Steam currently hosts the game free of charge, where it has garnered mixed reviews. While some users praise its tactical mechanics, others strongly criticize its narrative. The Ukrainian Center for Countering Disinformation released a statement calling the game a key role in brainwashing the population, reflecting the Russian government's version of events regarding the invasion of Ukraine and glorifying military service. The game also received criticism for incorporating AI-generated art. In response, the developers clarified that some 2D images in-game were pre-rendered using AI as a base for the work of our 2D artists, and later drawn over in order to make them genuine art. SPN Studio has pushed back against accusations that the game is purely propaganda. When asked about how the game passed moderation on Steam, Tolkash claimed, "Valve's team literally requested access to all in-game content and checked it for about 60 days, a far longer review process than most titles, which are mostly like 5 to 7 days. In light of growing concern, critics have also taken aim at Steam for distributing the game globally. Several users pointed out that the symbols featured in Squad 22 ZOV, such as Z and V, are banned in Ukraine, Germany, and other countries due to their association with the Russian military campaign in Ukraine, and accused it of spreading offensive narratives, mainly targeting Ukraine as the enemy. Tolkash responded to the backlash, stating that he understood the game would be problematic, and pointing out that many game developers would stick to the World War II era or fictional settings to avoid such controversies. The release of Squad 22 ZOV raises ongoing questions about the ethical implications of portraying real-world conflicts in entertainment media. While games can serve educational or immersive functions, they may also shape how players perceive historical and political narratives. In this case, many see the involvement of SPN Studio and the reported collaboration with the Russian Ministry of Defense suggest a specific framing of the conflict, one that has drawn both attention and criticism. Now, the next entry in this video comes from a company you've probably heard a lot when gaming controversies are brought up, and now they'll be responsible for a cancelled Marvel superhero game, the cancelled Black Panther video game. And not to be confused with the upcoming Captain America and Black Panther game, that one's Marvel 1943 Rise of Hydra. However, this Black Panther game would be taking place in a modern setting. Anyways, EA cancels another game. On July 10th, 2023, EA revealed a new Seattle-based studio, Cliffhanger Games. Along with the announcement, they shared that the studio's first project would be an open-world Black Panther game, set in the richly detailed world of Wakanda. Cliffhanger Games was set up for success, backed by a AAA publisher and led by General Manager Kevin Steffens, former VP and studio head of the now-closed Monolith Productions. Monolith was famously known for Middle-earth, Shadow of Mordor, and Fear. Fear was a first-person horror shooter game that I was absolutely terrified to play when I was younger, and several ex-Monolith employees would also be on this project. So how could it fail? Despite Monolith's strong track record, the studio shut down after 30 years of operation. Warner Bros. Discovery, which owned Monolith, made the decision on February 25th, 2025, following the poor reception of Suicide Squad Killed the Justice League, a game I spent like $70 on. I don't know why I bought it. I was just curious to see what happens to the Justice League. More so, I was curious to see how the world of the Arkhamverse was going, and it's not going good. Anyways, that game was developed by another Warner-owned studio, Rocksteady, and I hope the Rocksteady glory days could come back one day. Before Monolith's closure, they had been working on a now-cancelled Wonder Woman game, which, like the Black Panther game, was rumored to incorporate the studio's signature Nemesis system. The Nemesis system, first introduced in Shadow of Mordor, generated dynamic, personalized enemy interactions that evolved based on the player's choices with enemies. And let me say, it's just a really cool concept, and I hope that one day people could use it in their games without having to worry about the legal issues. Which brings me to my next point. Warner Bros. Controversially patented the system, meaning no other developer could legally copy or closely imitate it without permission. Of course, this sparked backlash, as many felt it stifled innovation in gaming, and it feels horrible that a company would just copyright a game mechanic. And I'm pretty sure this game mechanic isn't even used in any recent games because of Warner Bros. So like, why copyright it? Anyways, given Kevin Stevens' involvement involvement in developing the original system, many speculated that Cliffhanger Games, now with EA, might have implemented a variation of it. In fact, several online articles discussing the Black Panther project specifically highlighted the Nemesis-style mechanics. Now, for the game itself and what it could have been. Set in the fictional African nation of Wakanda, players would have taken control of T'Challa, Killmonger, Shuri, and even Azari, the son of T'Challa and X-Men Storm. All of these characters were expected to compete for the mantle of the Black Panther, all while Wakanda faced an invasion from the shape-shifting alien race known as the Skrulls. What really excited fans was the reported emphasis on player choice, and world reactivity. Forming alliances would have changed the story, and characters you didn't side with could become rivals. Marvel rivals. This mechanic strongly hinted at the influence of the Nemesis system, and while navigating the internal competition for the Black Panther title, you'd also have to watch your back. The Skrulls could infiltrate Wakanda and even impersonate allies. The game was reportedly being built in Unreal Engine 5 and was described as a single-player action-adventure title. But on May 28, 2025, EA sent an email to IGN confirming that Cliffhanger Games was being shut down and the Black Panther project was being cancelled as well. EA Entertainment President Laura Mille explained that the company would instead focus on its already established franchises that generate consistent revenue through microtransactions, such as Apex Legends, The Sims, and Battlefield. Unlike multiplayer titles that make continuous money from cosmetics and battle passes, a story-driven single-player game like Black Panther would only earn from initial sales and a few DLCs. Once again, like in 1998 when EA cancelled the ultra-violent Thrill Kill, EA got cold feet when it came to investing in a new IP and retreated to familiar ground. Maybe they'll make a new FIFA game. However, considering how this whole entire thing is still recent, there's still being updates. And recently, an article by GamerInc citing Bloomberg's Jason Schreier offered a different perspective. According to Schreier, the game had just passed a major development milestone known as a gate, a point where executives evaluate progress to decide whether the project should continue. Despite passing the gate, EA executives decided to shut it all down. One key reason, the game had reportedly been in pre-production for 4 years and still wasn't out of that phase. Most AAA titles take between 2 and 5 years to complete. So EA likely viewed the project as a high-risk investment, even with Monolith veterans at the helm and a strong fan base behind it. And as you could expect, the cancellation sparked outrage online, with fans taking to social media to vent their frustration. Still, once people learned that EA was involved, many admitted they weren't surprised at all. It seems with superhero games, there's always trouble behind it. I mean, we could literally list a few right now. The cancelled Wonder Woman game, Insomniac cancelling all DLCs for Spider-Man 2 because of the hacker situation, and as well, I think Wolverine has been delayed again because of the hacker situation as well. And more recently, the Black Panther game we just talked about, and in 2022, a new Iron Man game was announced, but there have been no trailers surrounding the game or anything promoting it, and it makes me wonder what's gonna happen with that game. And now for the next entry, we have a Gunner gacha game, and you've probably heard about it if you're into that scene. No judging here. Goddess of Victory Nikke. Released in November 2022 by South Korean studio Shift Up, the same developers known for their upcoming title Stellar Blade. Goddess of Victory is a free-to-play third-person cover shooter game featuring hyper-stylized anime girls. And let's be honest, an unapologetic amount of fan service. And it works. The game saw strong reviews on launch, with praise aimed at a surprisingly solid story, addictive gameplay loop, and the art direction. Within its first year, Goddess of Victory raked in over $400 million through microtransactions. But by 2025, the game's community had been divided. The controversy kicked off on May 22nd, when Shift Up launched the Chinese version of Goddess of Victory. Almost immediately, global players noticed that the Chinese build came with a ton of quality of life improvements. Faster menus, smoother loading, buffed character stats, and a cleaner progression system. Stuff fans had been begging for years. People weren't just annoyed, they were upset. Many called out the devs for favoring the Chinese player base, accusing them of abandoning the global version entirely. Accusations of bootlicking started flying. Forums lit up with backlash, and players began review bombing the game on the App Store and Google Play. ShiftUp responded on Twitter the next day, basically saying that both versions of the game would grow in their own directions, but that wasn't enough. What made things worse was a now deleted repost by ShiftUp's own CEO, where he shared a meme mocking global players. Once people noticed, he tried to quietly undo the damage, but by then it was too late. Players were pissed, reviews tanked, and ShiftUp stock dropped over 10% as of the time I'm making this video. It's a classic example of not how to handle your global fanbase, uneven regional support, poor communication, and a CEO adding fuel to the fire. In the gacha scene where players already might feel exploited, that's a dangerous line to cross. However, Goddess of Victory does have a loyal fan base, and it seems that they might just pull out of this controversy. Now, this next entry may be the last in this video considering just how long it is, but it comes from a company that basically structured my childhood with the games they developed. And recently, it's kind of sad to say, but the same company that I looked up to has been seen in a lot of controversies. Anyways, let's give it up for Bungie stealing art once again. If you're familiar with the Halo series, both Destiny games, and the classic Marathon series, Bungie doesn't need much of an introduction. But now recently, Bungie has decided to bring back Marathon after so many years, titled simply Marathon, as another typical extraction shooter, but now set in a really futuristic aesthetic. And it seems to be inspired by the artist's art who they stole from, which we'll get into just in a moment. The game is currently slated for release in September later this year, but fans aren't really that excited. It's another entry in an oversaturated market, and a lot of players just want Bungie to return to its roots and make games like Halo again. But we know at this point, the real controversy comes from something far more frustrating and illegal: art theft. This isn't the first time Bungie has been caught stealing art without crediting the original artist. Recently, just last year, Bungie was caught red-handed stealing art. In 2024, they admitted to using fan art and design of a Destiny 2 Nerf gun. I guess it's Nerf or nothing, or in this case, art theft or nothing. And another time, an artist's work was used in a Destiny 2 cutscene. In both cases, Bungie only compensated the artist after they called out the company on Twitter. And once again, to no one's surprise, it's happened again. On May 30th, Twitter user Antireal made a post after discovering that several environments in the 2025 Marathon Games Alpha were using assets lifted directly from poster designs she created in 2017. The comparisons Antireal posted made it painfully obvious. One of the textures even still faintly shows her tag. Bungie literally just ripped out her work and put it in the game without any credit or proper payment. Real scummy business practices coming from a AAA studio. I'll bring this up again later, but literally Bungie is worth millions of dollars, I think. Why not just avoid the later legal trouble and hire Antireal to work on your game? It's really upsetting, and this part will probably be like a rant. Anyways, here's what Antireal had to say about this whole entire theft. Here's the initial tweet Antireal made calling out Bungie and Joseph A. Cross, the art director for Marathon. And even accordingly to some people online, some of the staff members at Bungie and that were working on Marathon were following Antireal before the whole entire accusations were made. So it's even more painfully obvious that the studio stole from Antireal. And it's crazy that they did follow her. Anyways, here's what Antireal had to say. Bungie is of course not obligated to hire me when making a game that draws overwhelmingly from the same design language I have refined for the last decade. But clearly, my work was good enough to pillage for ideas and plaster all over their game without payment or attribution. I don't have the resources nor the energy to spare to pursue this legally, but I have lost count of the number of times a major company has deemed it easier to pay a designer to imitate or steal my work than to write me an email. which is the right thing to do, and I'm baffled Bungie couldn't even do that. In 10 years, I have never made a consistent income from this work, and I am tired of designers from huge companies moodboarding and parasiting my designs, while I struggle to make a living. And once again, the insane part is Bungie is worth billions of dollars. They could have just emailed her and paid her fairly to work on the game. The entire aesthetic of the Marathon reboot seems to be directly inspired by her work, so why not just bring her on board? As for Bungie's response, it didn't even come from their main Twitter account. Instead, it was posted from an unverified account called Marathon Dev Team, and this is what they had to say. We immediately investigated a concern regarding unauthorized use of artist decals in Marathon, and confirmed that a former Bungie artist included these in a texture sheet that was ultimately used in-game. This issue was unknown by our existing art team, and we are still reviewing how this oversight occurred. We take matters like this very seriously. We have reached out to Anti-Real to discuss this issue, and are committed to do right by the artist. As a matter of policy, we do not use the work of artists without their permission, unlike the several other times Bungie has been caught stealing fan art for their projects. To prevent similar issues in the future, we are conducting a thorough review of our in-game assets, specifically those done by the former Bungie artists, and implementing stricter checks to document all artist contributions. We value the creativity and dedication of all artists who contribute to our games, and we are committed to doing right by them. Thank you for bringing this to our attention. And rather than take full responsibility, Bungie's response blames an unnamed former artist who just conveniently doesn't work there anymore, and a lot of people called this out as just another excuse. Bungie didn't even try to give a proper explanation. They should have just called Saul Goodman. The story is still unfolding and things could change, but at this point, Bungie is developing a pattern: steal art, get called out, offer compensation, rinse and repeat. Hopefully Anti-Real gets the recognition and payment she deserves. But one thing is for sure, Bungie is gaining a reputation not as the creators of Halo or Marathon, but as a billion-dollar studio that repeatedly exploits independent artists. After talking about a lot of recent controversies, one thing should become crystal clear. Whether it's really explicit visual novels like No Mercy that go into really dark territory, or Squad 22 ZOV being backed by the Russian military, or Bungie stealing art for the millionth time, it doesn't matter how big or small the game or company is. If something rubs people the wrong way, the backlash will be immediate. Or sometimes it has nothing to do with the fan base, like when it came to the cancelled Black Panther game. Like in the Black Panther game, they already had issues. The game was in pre-concept for like 4 years, but at the end of the day, EA canceled the game because it was too much of a risk. Or it's just typical EA behavior, canceling a promising game. Initially, this video was going to be longer and have a few more entries, but I figured it'd be better just to get a video out there because it's been a while since I did a controversy video. And I figured, why not just do recent controversy since I've heard about the Black Panther game from TikTok, and also the No Mercy game on TikTok as well. And I was like, wow, these games are really controversial. I should really talk about them. And before I yap too much, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment for more controversial content. Anyways, this has been Keen or Keenies, and yeah, it's been a pleasure. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you all later.